Hare Krishna. Is anyone on the call? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Lila Manjari. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Guru Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada.
Please accept mine. All glories to Guru Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada.
How are you, Lila Manjari?
I'm good, Mataji. We'll get started with the prayers.
Oh, shall we? Oh, who's doing the class today?
Me.
Oh, again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So, Mataji, we'll get started because these are some nice verses. So, if we get started on time, we can have a nice discussion, hopefully, at the end.
Okay.
Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Kadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapatakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Tam Sajivam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Narayanam Namaskritya, Naram Chaiva Narottamam, Devim Saraswatim Vyasam, Tato Jayam Mudirayat, Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. So, we are reading from Canto 2, Chapter 9, Answers by Citing the Lord's Version. So today we'll be reading text 40, 41 and 42. So, Govardhan Lila Mataji?
Yes, Mataji.
Janma Mataji is also on the call, and maybe some other devotees have also joined. So, do you have the book in front of you? Would you like to read text 40?
Okay, Mataji. Okay. Prajapatir Dharma Patir Ikada Niyam Mandyaman Badram Prajanam Anvichan Atishtat Svarta Kamyaya. Translation. Thus, once upon a time, the forefather of living entities and the father of religiousness, Lord Brahma, situated himself in acts of regulative principles, desiring self-interest for the welfare of all living entities. Purport by His Divine Grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. One cannot be situated in an exalted position without having undertaken a regulative life of rules and regulations. An unrestricted life of sense gratification is animal life. And Lord Brahma, in order to teach all concerned within the jurisdiction of his generations, taught the same principles of self-control for executing higher duties. He desired the welfare of all as servants of God. And anyone desiring the welfare of the members of his family and generations must conduct a moral, religious life. The highest life of moral principles is to become a devotee of the Lord, because a pure devotee of the Lord has all the good qualities of the Lord. On the other hand, one who was not a devotee of the Lord, however qualified he may be in the mundane sense of the term, cannot be qualified with any good quality worthy of the name. The pure devotees of the Lord, like Brahma and persons in the chain of disciplic succession, do not do anything to instruct their subordinates without acting accordingly themselves.
Thank you, Govardhan Lila Manjari. Who else has joined?
Mataji, I have. This is Manasikanga.
Hare Krishna, Manasikanga Mataji. Anybody else who's also on the call?
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay, Mataji. So maybe we will discuss this verse first. But actually, this is a nice combination of verses. The Lord has just left after speaking with Brahmaji, and this verse is describing what happens right after the Lord left. So in the previous verse, in text 39, Brahmaji he started recreating the world, but before he actually embarked on the process of recreating the world, it sees this verse actually talks about the attitude of a person who is doing an important work on behalf of the Lord. So, in one sense, we can think of this verse as before any one of us becomes a leader in society. So now one may think that we are not leaders in society, but in whatever small or big leadership role we are, the same principle applies in everybody's life. So Lord Brahma, what did he do? It is described here that he was the father of religiousness. He situated himself in acts of regulative principles, desiring self-interest for the welfare of all living entities. So he did two things. He situated himself in acts of regulative principles. So that means he followed the rules and regulations that are set in the Vedas. And the second is that for a leader, he has to desire the self-interest of other living entities. So not just his self-interest, but also of all other living entities. So that's exactly what Brahma did. And how did he do that? It's described in the purport that in order to become exemplary in one's life, one has to be able to control the senses, and he has to lead a life of rules and regulations. So one cannot become great without having these qualities. So, for example, we can like contrast it with the modern politicians that we have. So many times, actually, I was a big fan of Clinton, President Clinton. And towards the end of his presidency, however, we saw that he could not uphold regulative principles. So this is one of the big, in modern society, it may not be considered offensive or anything big, but although it really became a big issue towards the end. But so in Vedic civilization, it is considered inappropriate for certain, because a person who cannot control his senses, although he may pose as a good leader, he may be very materially qualified, still he is not considered qualified to act as a leader according to the Vedic principles. So the first thing one needs to do is to have a regulative life of rules and regulations. So they should be able to control the senses. Prabhupada writes, an unrestricted life of sense gratification is animal life, and Lord Brahma, in order to teach all concerned within the jurisdiction of his generations, taught the same principle of self-control for executing higher duties. Actually, if we are unable to control the senses, then wish to benefit others and think of others' welfare is not possible. Because the senses, it is described in the Bhagavad Gita that the senses are like serpents. So any of the senses can actually bewilder the mind. So the first principles that one needs to follow as a devotee is to, like we have the 4 regulative principles: no meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, no illicit sex. So those are the basis of regulated religious life. So the opposite of that would be truthfulness, austerity, mercy, and cleanliness. So these are the 4 principles of regulative life. So in order for anything to build further, these 4 become the foundation of religious life. But unfortunately, like in our modern society, because these 4 principles are not followed, and senses are not controlled for the leaders, they really cannot benefit others without controlling their own senses. That is the fallacy in today's politics. Political leaders as well as other leaders, as teachers in the society, as doctors. This thing actually degrades the mentality of leaders. So because of having no sense control, it completely degrades a person. He desired the welfare of all as servants of God, and anyone desiring the welfare of the members of his family and generations must conduct a moral religious life. And then he says, actually, the highest life of moral principles is to become a devotee of the Lord. So now this is another interesting thing. So there are many people, like for example, Mahatma Gandhi, he was a great political leader, but at the same time, he followed all the religious principles. Like he was following no meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, no illicit sex. But towards the end of his life, Prabhupada even wrote a letter to Gandhi before he was actually shot. He said, now you must become a devotee of the Lord. But unfortunately, Gandhi, over the course of his lifetime, he did not have the great opportunity that we have today. He did not come across the spiritual masters. So in a very strict sense, we cannot call him as a devotee of the Lord, although he did say that he carried the Bhagavad Gita and he chanted the names of the Lord. But here Prabhupada is pointing out that without becoming a devotee of the Lord, one cannot have good qualities. So this can be understood like this. When the good qualities in a person are based on the moral principles of the society, which actually fall into either the mode of goodness, the mode of passion, or the mode of ignorance, then they're not sustained. My spiritual master, he often gives this example. When he was a brahmachari, he once went to purchase winter jackets and coats for the devotees. And because he was a brahmachari, he wanted all like orange, saffron winter jackets and coats in those days. So he went into one store, and there the person actually, because he recognized that here is a person who is a monk. So he took him inside and he said, "Oh, look, I have contributed to this cause, I've contributed to that cause, this is what I've done, this is how I have donated. And then, because my spiritual master at that time, he was very young, he had just joined the movement, he immediately said, so what have you done for the soul? As soon as my spiritual master, acted in a way that was contradictory to what he was expecting, like he was expecting that uh, when he would share all these nice things that he has done for the society, there would be some praise, glorification in return. But that was not what he received. So my spiritual master's question was, what have you done for the soul? And he didn't like the question. So he immediately said, oh, leave my store. He didn't even have a conversation further. So when these qualities, of charity and, doing welfare for others, being nice to others, all these things, as long as they're not grounded in service to Krishna, they last only for a short period of time, as long as that other person's subtle sense gratification is being fulfilled. Until then, it will last. But after that, beyond that point, those same good qualities will not shine. But because the devotees of the Lord, their shelter is the lotus feet of the Lord. And anything in this material world, it has a quality. It is transient. It changes after a period of time. But having taken shelter in the lotus feet of the Lord, that is something that is eternal, that will never change. Therefore, the good qualities in a devotee, when they're based on a spiritual platform, they last forever. But the same good qualities in a material person, they will not last, because as soon as the subtle sense gratification or gross sense gratification is not provided to the person, the same qualities will not be exhibited. So here Prabhupada is saying, the highest life of moral principles is to become a devotee of the Lord, because a pure devotee of the Lord has all the good qualities of the Lord. On the other hand, one who is not a devotee of the Lord, however qualified he may be in the mundane sense of the term, cannot be qualified with any good qualities worthy of the name. The pure devotee of the Lord, like Brahma and persons in the chain of disciplic succession, do not do anything to instruct their subordinates without acting accordingly themselves. So Prabhupada is making this point that all good qualities in a devotee are, when we serve Krishna, when we decorate Krishna, then Krishna decorates his devotee in return. And those qualities that are given by Krishna are eternal. They're with the soul. So that's why the devotee becomes decorated with all good qualities. And the final point that he makes is, anybody who is like Brahma, who is the leader of the society in a proper disciplic succession, he doesn't instruct anything to anybody without he himself following those principles. So actually, there is a nice story in this connection. Like once a person went to a guru, and he said, "Oh, my dear Guru, I have this problem. I like sweets. I like to eat a lot of sweets." Then the Guru told the person, "You come back after 1 week." And after the person came back after 1 week, he said, just eat in a regulated fashion. In every 2 days, eat one sweet. So the person said, when I first came, you could have said the same thing to me. Like, why did you make me come after 1 week? Why this delay? So the Guru said, when you came the first time, I was also eating a lot of sweets. Now I have regulated myself, so now I can tell you to also become regulated. So whenever we share something with other people, if we are ourselves following that in our life, then it becomes more effective. But if we cannot follow what we are sharing with others, then it does not have the same impact. So there is another important aspect to this. So similarly, when we are sharing Krishna consciousness is a path of complete purity. So the heart, the mind, the intentions, everything have to be pure. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, before he started preaching Krishna consciousness, for 11 years he was chanting 192 rounds each day. He did not go when he received the order to preach from his spiritual master. He immediately did not go out and think that, okay, from today onwards I can preach. He qualified himself to preach. So similarly, Lord Brahma, before he began his service, he qualified himself by performing all these things, by following the principles, regulative principles, and thinking about the desire and welfare of other living entities. So in this verse, we heard something about the qualities of the leader. In the next two verses, we'll be hearing about the qualities of a person who's a follower, who's a disciple. So, Manasi Ganga Mataji, would you like to read text 41 and 42? Are you in front of the book?
Yes, Mataji. I'm sorry, I keep myself on mute so that I don't disturb anybody. So 41 and 42? Okay.
Yes, Mataji.
Okay. Tam narada priyatamo vitta danam anuvrata shushra samana shilane prashrayena damenacha. Translation. Narada, the most dear of the inheritor sons of Brahma, always ready to serve his father, strictly follows the instructions of his father by his mannerly behavior, meekness, and self-control. 42. Mayam vivishan vishnur maya sasya mahamunihi mahabhava agavato rajan pitaran paryatora sayat. Translation. Narada very much pleased his father and desired to know all about the energies of Vishnu, the master of all energies. For Narada was the greatest of all sages and greatest of all devotees. Okay. Purport. Lord Brahma, being the creator of all living beings in the universe, is originally the father of several well-known sons, like Daksha, the Chatussanas, and Narada, the three departments of human knowledge disseminated by the Vedas, namely fruitive work, karma kanda, transcendental knowledge, jnana kanda, and devotional service, asana kanda. Devarsi Narada inherited from his father Brahma devotional service, where Daksha inherited from his father fruitive work, and Sanaka, Sanatana, etc., inherited from their father information about jnana kanda, or transcendental knowledge. But out of them all, Narada is described here as the most beloved son of Brahma because of good behavior, obedience, meekness, and readiness to render service unto the Father. And Narada is famous as the greatest of all sages because of his being the greatest of all devotees. Narada is the spiritual master of many famous devotees of the Lord. He is the spiritual master of Prahlad, Dhruva, and Vyasa, down to the forest animal hunter Kirata. His only business is to turn everyone to the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Therefore, all these features of Narada make him the dearmost son of his father, and all this is due to Narada's being first-class devotee of the Lord. The devotees are always anxious to know more and more about the Supreme Lord, the master of all energies. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 10.9, Maschitad Matkata Prana Bodhaya Yanta Parasparam Gata Yantas Chamam Nityam Tasyanti Cha Raman Teacher. The Supreme Lord is unlimited, and his energies are also unlimited. No one can know them completely. Brahmaji, being the greatest living entity within this universe, and being directly instructed by the Lord, must know more than anyone within this universe, although such knowledge may not be complete. Thus, it is the duty of everyone to ask about the unlimited Lord from the spiritual master in the disciplic succession of Brahma, which descends from Narada to Vyasa and Vyasa to Sukadev, and so on.
Thank you, Manasi Ganga Mataji.
Thank you.
So, in these verses, actually, like we can see what are the nice qualities that a follower or a disciple must have, like through Narada's example. So his qualities were he strictly followed the instructions of his father, and he did it with good behavior, meekness, and self-control. And he was also the second verse says he was also inquisitive to know all about the Supreme Lord and his energies. So this made him very, very dear to his father. These qualities in Narada made him very dear to his father. So similarly, if we want to please our spiritual master, so these are the qualities. When the spiritual master gives some instruction, if we can try our best to execute the instruction and exercise self-control and a desire to know more about Krishna. So these are the qualities that please the spiritual master. So now Lord Brahma, he had many, many sons because Lord Brahma, he's the creator of the universe, and his business is to populate the universe. So he had many, many sons. So here it is said, like they are describing only about 3 of his main sons. And his Narada, Daksha, and the 4 Kumaras, they were his sons. So out of the many sons that he had, Narada, he remained celibate brahmachari throughout his life. Sanaka, Sanatana, Sananda, and Sanat. Sanaka, Sanatana, Sanand. Okay, I don't remember all the names, but there are 4 children of Lord Brahma. They also chose to remain as small children because they did not want to get married, because they felt that that would be an obstruction to cultivating devotional life. So only Daksha was the person who engaged himself in becoming a progenitor. Like after his father, he was one of the primary persons from whom generations of mankind came. So and also these children of Brahma, they became proficient in 3 departments of knowledge of Vedas. Narada became an expert in devotional service. Daksha became an expert in karma kanda, and the 4 Kumaras are said to be the knowledge incarnations of the knowledge of the Lord. They were so knowledgeable that it is said that they were incarnations of the Jnana Shakti of the Lord. They carry that potency of the Lord. But out of all of them, Narada is considered to be the dearmost to Lord Brahma because of all the qualities that we discussed before. And actually, among all these things, devotion to the Supreme Lord gives eternal happiness to the soul. So in other kinds of activities, especially karma kanda, what happens is the other persons who are engaged in karma kanda, they're always trying to compete with each other. So once I was hearing a very nice lecture by um, mm, Radha Govind Maharaj, and he was describing that the devotees of the Lord are the best, and he gave this example. Usually we see that whoever is engaged in karma kanda, usually the demigods and demons, they're engaged in karma kanda. They want some fruitive result for whatever they have performed. They want the kingdom of heaven. So they're always competing with each other, and they're trying to pull each other down. Sometimes the demons win, sometimes the devotees win. And even if somebody is performing a sacrifice or a severe penance, usually Narada will send, Indra will send the heavenly damsels to destroy their austerities. If he sees that someone is becoming very powerful, immediately he will send one of the heavenly damsels. And usually, by sending the heavenly damsels, whatever form of austerity they are performing, usually it is nullified. So there are so many stories we will read as we on in the course during the course of studying Srimad Bhagavatam. So that is not a good path, because everybody is competing with each other. It's not helpful. Devotees will not like that. So in Jnana Kanda is also not joyful. Why? Because in Jnana Kanda everybody is sitting in a solitary place, and they're meditating. So there is no fun in Jnana Kanda, and they're trying to concentrate on Brahman. But the best among all these things is devotional service, and this is the joke that he shared. Even if we don't wake up early in the morning and go to attend Mangalarti, we will still call the other devotees and say, "Wake up, Prabhu, it's time for Mangalarti." So, so, so that is the beauty of devotional life, that we want others to move forward in devotional life even before we move forward in devotional life. So that was just a joke. But on a serious note, actually devotional service is actually a very joyful process. If we, for a moment, if we stop thinking about our anxieties and we actually focus on thinking about what Krishna has done, the pastimes that he has performed with Mother Yashoda, or how he has dealt with the demons, and how he has protected his devotees. If we just think for a few minutes about Krishna, immediately we feel a sense of joy and happiness. Or it can be something very simple. If we just, out of love and affection, if we cut a fruit, we place it on a nice plate, and we put it in front of the deities, and we just say the mantras. Even those small things bring a lot of joy to the heart of the devotee. And what to speak of Kirtan? Kirtan is the best. So if we just go stand in Kirtan, even if the other devotees are dancing, we feel happiness. Even if we don't participate, we feel happiness. So that is the beauty of devotional life. So whoever, to whatever extent they have experienced devotional life, immediately they want to share the gift with others. So Narada, similarly, because he had relished the sweetness of devotional service, he became the spiritual master of many great devotees. So throughout Srimad Bhagavatam, again and again we'll hear about Narada, because he taught devotional service to Prahlad, Vyas, Dhruva, and even Kirata. Kirata, he was an animal hunter, as he says. So when devotional service always begins when we come in contact with a devotee of the Lord. So Narada was carrying that Bhakti Shakti, it is called, the energy of devotional service, and he gave it very readily and freely to whoever was in front of him. So he was such an expert. He knew exactly how to understand the heart of the person who was in front of him, and to explain about Krishna and give them Krishna in such a way that they would immediately accept it. So that is the beauty of Narada. So he was not only a first class devotee, but he made many first class devotees. And and one of the prior qualifications, how he made first class devotees, he had a lot of inquisitiveness to learn about the Lord. So he engaged completely in hearing about Krishna from proper bona fide sources. So this is the requirement. When we hear from proper bona fide sources, then we can pass on the message properly to others. So the prerequisite to performing pure devotional service is we need the association of devotees, and from them we have to inquire how to perform devotional service, what are the activities of Krishna, how can we please Krishna. So like that, he inquired from his fathers, and Brahmaji, he answered all his questions to his complete satisfaction. And after he learned from Brahmaji, he in turn passed on the message to Vyas, and from Vyas to Sukadev Goswami, from Sukadev Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit. So like that, the chain of disciplic succession continued. So that's what I had to share. If anybody would like to comment, or if they have any questions, or if they have any thing to add to what I've said. So besides Govardhan Lila Mataji and Manasi Ganga Mataji, who else is on the call? I know Janma Mataji is on the call.
Hare Krishna Mataji, I'm here, Prabhala Madhuri Dasi.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Now, thank you so much for the very, very nice.
Excuse me. Sorry, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Primarisa. Yeah, it was a very nice class. Thank you. Thank you.
And
Thank
just want to thank you.
For you. Oh, go ahead, Govardhan.
No, that's okay, Mataji. You go ahead.
Okay. So I was thinking of a couple of points you had made, Lila Manjari, and thank you for your beautiful class. It's so good to hear you give class. I was thinking about how you had said that, like, if we just think of Krishna, all the joy and happiness that, just thinking of him brings joy to the heart. And I was just thinking about how if we make it to the Goloka Vrindavan, how if here in our covered state of being, if we can feel joy just thinking of the Lord, how beautiful it must be to serve the Lord. I was just thinking about how I just can't even imagine how that would be. But then I also wanted to, you had said something about devotees and supporting each other, non-competitive. I think you did. I think that was where the point came from. And it just made me think of how Radha and reading some of her pastimes, how she, she's the most beloved of Krishna. Above all, she is just loved by Krishna supremely, and how there she is the most loved, and what she does in the spiritual world is the other she is forever like handing out devotional service. She's pushing them towards Krishna instead of taking all his attention. She pushes them towards Krishna and gives them the opportunity, and how that is that's an attitude and that that I think that I should, as well as others, learn. Just that, to get happiness from seeing others have a relationship with Krishna and serving him nicely. So I thought of that. And I think I'll stop there. I've got other things that other people, if there's time at the end, I'll continue on. So those are 2 points that I had made, that I had thought of when you were speaking. And again, thank you for your very nice class.
Thank you, Manasi Ganga Mataji. Actually, you remember the letter that Chandamali Maharaj sent to you, and he was telling that Sukadev Goswami, in the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, he didn't even mention the name of Radhika. Why? Because just by thinking of Radhika, he would go into ecstasy, and he would not be able to speak any further after that. So, yes, Srimati Radharani is the personification of the highest form of love for Krishna. She is the giver of devotional service. That's why they say when we chant Hare Krishna, Prabhupada, if you read carefully, Prabhupada doesn't say that we are calling out to Krishna when we are chanting Hare Krishna. He says we are praying to Srimati Radharani to engage us in devotional service. If you listen carefully, like on the altar, I played it again, and I used to play it again and again, but I never paid attention like carefully. But I was doing something, and suddenly it occurred to me that Prabhupada always says when we are chanting Hare Krishna, we are actually praying to Srimati Radharani. He doesn't say we are praying to Krishna.
Yeah, so you had asked me yesterday, like, to whom do I pray? And yeah, as I was telling you, different forms of Krishna, and for devotional service to guide me. Yeah, that's who I pray to. So that's what I need to continue, and more fervently, and more with more intensity. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Manasi Ganga Mataji. And Prabhupada, it is also said that, when we go into the temple, Krishna is not very inclined to give us anything, because he knows in the depth of our hearts what our desires are, what our shortcomings are. He knows that we have not come there to serve him, because we are not at that. I mean, at least I can speak for myself, like at least I'm not in that pure stage of love for Krishna. But they say that Srimati Radharani, she has such a compassionate heart. So she immediately, whoever comes in front of Krishna, she turns to Krishna and she says, give him your mercy. And Krishna is so much conquered by the love of Srimati Radharani, he cannot deny Radharani. So he gives mercy. He keeps giving mercy.
Yeah.
So it is a mercy of Krishna, but it comes through Srimati Radharani.
True, Srimati Radharani. And I was reading also that that love, and this was a commentary by Urmila Devidasi. She was saying that to have love, one must have humility, because if one doesn't have humility, then love is not really present. And I don't know, it just made me think of that, and how does one, here we are talking about love for Krishna. How does one foster a sense of humility? I think that's something I'm going to need to pray for, because, because it's not. Humility is not something that, like, it's not really true if you just practice it. It's got to be at the core of one's heart.
Mataji, just feel the association of devotees. You will become humble. Just tolerate the association of devotees.
Yeah. really nice things to read, but I want to give everybody else a chance. So I'm going to just be quiet and let Governor Lila and other people speak first, but if there's any time.
Yes, Mataji, thank you. Go with Lila, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, I just wanted to thank you for a very nice class, and thank you for your comments, Manasi Ganga Mataji. I think I was struck, I don't know, just got struck by the text 40 because, you know, I can think for myself prior to any form of God consciousness. I mean, it's not like I didn't have any ever, but it's how caught up in Kali Yuga, when people are caught up in Kali Yuga, this whole idea of taking on a regulative life of rules and regulations, like a completely restricted life, is like totally foreign to them. It was so foreign to me. Okay, when we're seeing here that Lord Brahma was he was situated in such an exalted position because he undertook a regulative life of rules and regulations, and he desired self-interest for the welfare of all living entities. That is so opposite of what, oh my God, it just amazes me. In my early life, I was not taught this at all. And it, you know, I used to think, well, and I'm not the only one who thought that way. I felt like I was a product of that whole generation and that came up, the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. You know, you do your own thing. You don't have to listen to what so-and-so is telling you. We didn't even want to listen to our parents. Defiance was the attitude, okay? And I couldn't understand how my uncles, they were in, you know, my grandmother just loved a couple of my uncles. Oh, your Uncle Joe this, your Uncle Joe that. And I thought, I'm looking at this here. He always listened to his mother. He always listened to, he became a subordinate, let's put it that way. And they don't do anything to instruct their subordinates without acting accordingly themselves. I mean, if his wife would tell him, and he was a real macho guy, if she said, you sweep and mop this floor tonight, he would do it. Not because he was a, you know, what's the word? You know, because he was a sap or something. He did it because he felt this was what needed to be done. It didn't matter if it was he was doing it or she was doing it. And I can see why certain people are loved so much. The ones that are loved so much, just like Narada, you mentioned, he was one of the greatest devotees. Now, I don't know where it's, I'm trying to look where it said it. Oh, darn. I think it was like something like he was the dearmost son of his father. He was a first-class devotee. He was anxious to hear more and more. He was in that position of, in that subordinate position, and his behavior, he was obedient. That's the word I'm looking for. Obedient. He was meek and ready to render service unto his father. And, you know, this was something I was not willing to do early on. And I think this caused me many, many problems in my spiritual life for the longest time. And so I see that there can be no exalted position. Like you mentioned Clinton, there can be no exalted position when the person is not acting accordingly. You know, whatever position you're in, if I'm going to be teaching a class, for example, and if I'm not practicing what I'm preaching, I don't think it has the same impact, and I don't think people will listen to you as much or will take to what you're saying or believe it unless you yourself are practicing that. And I think, as you pointed out, Narada was this type of individual. People just gravitated toward him, and he made so many people devotees, okay? And I'm seeing it, this quality is what keeps us, it gives us a life of, I don't know, a good spiritual life, a life of direction, a life of devotion, etc. So this aspect, the religious aspect, the spiritual aspect, must be there within the person, and that person must act that way in order to become exalted. It doesn't come otherwise, because, like you said, you can exalt the president, but if he's not acting accordingly, and then we find out like he wasn't acting morally, you change your feelings about this person. He cannot remain in that exalted position. Anyway, that's what came to my mind. I let some others speak. Thank you, Mataji.
Yeah,
and thank you for and thank you also for speaking for me yesterday. I really was unable to be there, so thank you.
Thank you, Professor Lila Manjari. So, I also struggle a lot in being regulated in my devotional life, but I think it is very, very essential to cultivate that. And sometimes to cultivate that, I think our consciousness has to be also aligned. There has to be a certain intelligence that has to kick in to be able to follow what is being said by the spiritual masters. So, and when things are done out of obedience, it can carry a person only to a certain extent. But when it is done with love, intelligence and love, when both two ingredients are also there, then it goes a longer distance. We become, instead of just obedience, there has to be intelligence, also love for the spiritual master. Then it comes more naturally. Like from the soul, instead of like just, I have to do it because I've been instructed to do it. So,
well, I guess
that I can cultivate that quality.
Oh no, Mataji, I guess what I was trying to, maybe I didn't explain myself thoroughly. It's just like you get a person who was acting like a real creep, a real devil in his or her life for years and years, and you just couldn't stand this person. This person was such a sinner. And finally, this, like you said, there has to come a moment of change. It's like the intelligence kicks in, and then obviously love of God, or in the heart, that person can change completely and suddenly will become completely obedient under any circumstance, and will not, rebel against it or be angry about it. They feel it is the only way for them to be. And that's, when people become very saintly, the one I'm thinking of that I know Manasi Ganga can relate to is Saint Paul, who was, I believe, a mercenary, and he was a murderer and everything before he became a saint. Okay, and it happened, and he totally turned his life around, was willing to, just die for the Lord. Anything. He completely changed his whole life, everything. And he was struck for the love of God, and he changed 360 degrees. And he just came to mind when I was saying that, because he was so evil prior to becoming a saint. That's all I was going to say. Thank you very much.
Yes, Mataji. Yeah. Thank you for bringing out all those points. Yeah. I liked your example of Uncle Joe.
Oh, Uncle Joe, yeah, everybody just loved Uncle Joe. Yeah, he would do anything for anybody, and I was like, why does he get first place? You know, I used to say that when I was a kid. How come everybody gives him first place, and how come my dad isn't first place, or why not my other uncle, this one or that one? He was so obedient and just loving, and just obedient and loving to his mother his whole life. He was always like that, and he just had it right from his heart. You know, it wasn't. He wasn't doing it because he was forced to. He did it because he really thought it was the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's what I'm trying to. You know, maybe I'm picking and groping for the words, but yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
I guess if you're convicted, no, I can see a person completely changing. That was really evil. I've known a couple who were extremely evil and changed 360 degrees. Before they died, they made sure they just changed and would do anything for people that they hated.
Mm. Mm. Yes, Mataji. Anything is possible by the mercy of the Lord.
Oh boy, yeah, that's true. It's very true, Mataji.
Thank you, Govardhan Lila Mataji.
Thank you.
Anyone else who is on the call and would like to say something? I think today we only have 5 people on the call. Janva Mataji, myself, Manasi Ganga Mataji, Govardhan Lila Mataji, Premarasa, and Prabhala Mataji. Anyone else who is on the call and would like to say something? Okay, I think that's it. So we can all pray that we can become good followers of Srila Prabhupada, because he was the best, both as a leader and as a disciple. So we can learn so much from his life, and we can pray to become good followers of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.